Hey Magic fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'm here with just a replay of a single match. I've been playing some queues lately, trying to tighten up the list. I've been starting to feel pretty good with it. I'll probably jump back into leagues soon. But for now, queues are just a good way to keep developing, chops with all the triggers, and just generally get a tighter understanding of the deck. Try to learn how to not make mistakes. So this opening hand looks fine to me. It's obviously a little land heavy, but you can't mulligan every hand that has 4 lands. We're on the play. Turn 2 Charming Prince, going to help us hopefully get rid of any lands that are coming our way. Turn 3, by then hopefully we'll have some good options, but potentially Teferi Time Raveler, super solid against control if we can get that down. They can't counter anything. We don't know who we're playing against yet. Obviously Ephemerate, the best card in the deck. So this is a keep for me. Opponent kept 7 as well. Could open up with a fetch land. We'd love to just start thinning the deck. All right, so it's Tron, and they have Once Upon a Time. Just going to use this opportunity to get a tapped breeding pool. So the idea about when to crack that fetch, I could have just waited until the opponent passed priority. I've come to not like going. I mean, the most technically precise way to do it, I think, is just to go to the end step and then fetch. But once it seems clear that the opponent is not going to be doing much on their turn, you can just go ahead and crack it. In this case, I think it might have been a touch premature because they could still play a map or something, but they're really not going to change their turn 1 play because I might be representing Spell Snare or Spell Pierce or whatever. So there's just a bunch of stops, and rather than pass through all of those, just get your land and hit whatever. We have no plays. We're not trying to bluff. Just hit F6. So the opponent found an Eldrazi Temple, which is good news for us because we greatly prefer playing against Eldrazi Tron than just normal Tron. So there's a Chromatic Star. I don't know if my explanation made sense. Effectively, I used to go to the end step all the time, but just going like F2, 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 like just to pass priority until the end step just takes a few extra seconds, particularly on the first turn where we have no real interaction and path wouldn't even be like something against a Tron deck on turn 1. Just crack right away, hit F6, save yourself a few seconds on the clock. You can see I'm still slightly ahead of the opponent on clock. It's something that a deck with so many triggers really needs to be aware of is how to play quickly. Okay, so despite the thinning with Misty Rainforest, I still drew a 5th land. Flooding against Tron is, obviously not where you want to be. Go ahead and play that basic now. We may want to have Death Touch with Icefang Coatl eventually, since this is Eldrazi Tron. And to get Death Touch online, we need to have some basics out. So we're going to go ahead and scry with Charming Prince. I like both of these. So put the Coiling Oracle first and the Soulherder on top of that, since I can just play the Soulherder next turn. Unfortunately, Teferi's really not that great in this matchup. I suppose next turn, if they play like a map on their turn, I could bounce it with Teferi if they don't have mana up to crack it right away. But Teferi's really just not that amazing, particularly in the early turns. I guess if the opponent gets to like Karn, the Great Creator, and they slam Michael Synth Lattice, Teferi can't activate, right? Because then all of our stuff is artifacts and he can't be activated, I guess, right? So he can't even bounce anything in that case. So just not his best matchup, I don't think. If I'm misunderstanding Teferi's value against Tron, let me know in the comments, but they're not trying to do a lot of stuff at instant speed, and that's where Teferi shines, right? So speaking of not instant speed, here is a sorcery finding an Urza's Tower. All right, and they play that right away. We can go ahead and hide that from the revealed card since it's on the battlefield. Here is the Soulherder that we scried to the top of the deck. I'm going to crack in with this Charming Prince. Play the Vista, thin the deck a little bit more. And the land that we get here doesn't make a huge difference. Play out the Soulherder, get a little bit more value. This will be, let's see. This is the second time now that we get to scry with the Charming Prince. We expect to still see, well, no, we actually got rid of the Oracle that we scried to the top because we had to crack one of our fetch lands. We do not need this Hierarch, so that's going to go to the bottom. And the Coatl's fine, so I kept that on the top. Coatl's nice in this matchup because it plays around all of their sorcery speed stuff. Like if they have a Karn, we can flash in our Coatl on the end step and start attacking with it. Or, you know, if Ugin tries to wipe the board. All right, so turn 3 Tron, why not? Would be weird if they didn't have it, right? Okay, so here's the Thought-Knot Seer. We can't really do anything against that. I think opponent sort of makes a mistake taking Teferi. But again, if I'm misunderstanding Teferi's potential power in this matchup, yes, he cycles, draws a card, but Ephemerate is super powerful in our deck. Following up with Oblivion Stone. So things not looking super amazing, but the opponent is tapped out. We're going to get at least a little bit more value with this Soulherder. There's that Coatl, and we really don't want to play it yet. I'm going to sort of let the opponent play into it a little bit. We can have Death Touch online if we get another basic. Can't attack into this Thought-Knot right now, unfortunately. Things still looking fairly grim since we have we've drawn 5 lands. I mean, we had 4 in the opener. All right, so here, I guess I could have played the Coatl and then blinked Charming Prince, which would then sort of tuck away the Coatl. So in the event that the opponent plays some sort of board wipe or activates a board wipe, I could then get the Coatl back on their end step, but just keeping him up at instant speed seems better. We're just going to go ahead and scry again with the Charming Prince. So again, land to the bottom, and Force can stay at the top. That's pretty nice. One of our best tools for fighting all this high mana cost crazy stuff. There's that Eldrazi Temple that we saw earlier. So now we don't know any of the cards in the opponent's hand. Effectively, the only thing that we're really hoping to dodge here is Walking Ballista. It's just we don't have a path, and it would just be really hard to deal with. So Ugin is our sort of traditional nemesis. Even against Merfolk, like I tend to play dorky little creature decks. Ugin is a board wipe that stays around and can board wipe again. It can lightning bolt all your creatures. It has a ridiculous ultimate. So it might seem like time to scoop, but it's actually time to flex one of Charming Prince's hidden modes. So they are going to tick down for 3, trying to exile each permanent with converted mana cost X or less. That's 1 or more colors. Obviously, that's my entire board. But I'm going to respond with Ephemerate on Charming Prince. And Charming Prince is going to use his 3rd ability, the exile another target creature you own, return it to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. This will make sure that Soulherder is on the battlefield during my turn, and we can keep getting some value off of him. We also are going to have a rebounded Ephemerate, and we have the instant speed Icefang Coatl. Now, Thought-Knot is getting in here, and I could totally flash in the Coatl and Death Touch block this guy, but we need to do something about Ugin. Flashing in Coatl, he's going to get blinked on our upkeep, so Soulherder will already become a 2/2. If we draw into like a Hierarch, it'll be a 3/3. So I just don't want to block right now. If we blink the Coatl next turn, we can't attack with it, which is unfortunate since we'd love to get this Ugin off the battlefield as quickly as possible. There's that Force that we scried. Choosing not to block here. I'm going to go ahead and get one of my dual lands out. And there's the Soulherder. Coming back on the end step, so excellent job, Charming Prince. That guy's just been really impressive with his versatility in all my testing. So this is the first buff to Soulherder here. We're going to draw another card off this Coatl. Eternal Witness is sort of spectacular. And there's another Teferi, which I wasn't super happy to see. I mean, it doesn't bounce Planeswalkers, right? It only bounces artifact creatures or enchantments. I guess we could bounce the Oblivion Stone, and then they replay it for 3. They still have 5 mana left to crack it. So it doesn't seem like the highest impact play. I do like getting back Ephemerate. That can grow the Soulherder more, draw more cards. The Teferi seems like a good option to pitch to Force of Negation. So I'm going to go ahead and play this Eternal Witness, get back Ephemerate. Swing in with the Soulherder, and just go ahead right now. We don't need any more lands, so I'm just going to Ephemerate the Coatl and hopefully draw something good, like a Path or another Ephemerate. Unfortunately, I drew another land. Some people, before they cast Ephemerate, might have cracked the land to thin the deck. It's probably advisable, but I wasn't really sure. Like, I guess if we drew a Hierarch, I would have wanted to get green mana. If I drew a Path, I would have wanted to get white mana. Could potentially just get a Temple Garden. So as it went, I drew a land, so I don't need any colors. So I don't know. Do you guys think, in my shoes here, would you have cracked this before drawing a card? It's probably correct. But not having anything in our hand that we can cast and not knowing what we're going to draw into, it's kind of a hard call. But we did manage to get that returned Soulherder up to 3/3 on our turn. If we had top decked an Ephemerate, I could have just blinked the Coatl again, and Ugin would be just totally gone at this point. Shows the power of some of the flexibility of interactions in our deck. Soulherder will blink the Coatl again. Work those triggers. Another instant speed. Body, getting closer to Death Touch. So he goes ahead and gets rid of the Coatl. Doesn't like all that value we're getting using the +2 mode of Ugin. And opponent taps a tower and 2 mines. To cast Karn Liberated, we are definitely going to pitch this Teferi. To counter him, let's see, they have 3 mana up. It's not enough to crack this Oblivion Stone. They follow up with an Expedition Map, and they have enough mana to go ahead and crack that. And they get a Blast Zone, which is decent. We've got 2 3-drops. They can play that next turn, pump it up, and it's just another board wipe against us. So pretty rough. Opponent gets in, pretty aggressive. Clearly we're not going to block here. I am going to thin the deck further. Choosing still to get my last shock land because we can turn on Death Touch just with this Vista here. Rebound, we can go ahead and blink the Eternal Witness to get back Ephemerate and then get back Force. So instant speed effects mean we don't really have to use Ephemerate this second. Go ahead and attack Ugin, Ugin down. Play that Vista, blink the Eternal Witness on end step. Get back the Force of Negation. We've got plenty of mana to hardcast it now. Opponent draws for the turn, taps all of his Tron lands, again tapping down below Oblivion Stone. For an Ugin, they just saw me get back Force of Negation, so I can cast that. I could actually cast it if they had some nasty follow-up, which I don't know what it could be, with only 2 more mana. I could Ephemerate Eternal Witness and get it back and still have a Coatl left in hand to pitch. And the opponent scooped at that point, which is really, really strange because they've still got a Thought Knot. I'm at 8 life. They've got a board wipe on the table. They've got another one in hand. yes, I am going to get to keep recurring good stuff. I have a couple of Death Touchers that can hold a Thought Knot off. I guess if they pop Oblivion Stone before they put a Fate counter on this guy, I'll get to draw a card when he leaves the battlefield. So I don't know. Seems like the opponent had enough one way or another, and got the concession. So if we take a quick look at what we got through in that game, we beat the first Ugin, countered a second Ugin, countered a Karn, and apparently a Thought Knot, an Oblivion Stone, and a Blast Zone are not quite enough. So yeah, I mean, it was a weird way to finish that first game, but you know, I'll take it. So let's go ahead to game 2, try to check what I did with the sideboard, and just see how the game went. All right, back for game 2. Opponent's going to be on the play. My sideboard's a bit all over the place right now with singletons, so I'm going to do my best to let you guys know what I brought in. So, took out my Winds of Abandon. Actually, not sure if that's correct. I think we might want as much removal as we have access to in game 2 against Eldrazi Tron, because they've got Reality Smashers and Walking Ballistas and Thought Knot Seers and Matter Reshapers and stuff like that. So possible that was a misstep. Took out one Wind, took out one Force, just because I brought in some other counter spells. Took out the 2 Teferis. As I mentioned, they were not super impressive. Trimmed a Coiling Oracle, which is sort of weird. The Princes, in combination with Ephemerate, are just such good protection against their sorcery speed sort of board wipe effects that I wanted to leave all the Princes in this matchup. I think a lot of people don't fully realize the flexibility and utility of Charming Prince yet. They probably haven't played with it enough. But they think that, you know, against any matchup other than Burn, we're just going to sideboard the guy out. But it's really not that true. Gaining life is pretty sweet against Burn and against other aggressive decks. Like, I used it to really great effect against Merfolk the other day. But it can basically be another Eternal Witness. If you have an Eternal Witness out on the board, you play a Charming Prince and then just blink your Eternal Witness. It just basically acts like another Eternal Witness. So very, very strong card. Did great in that first game. So anyhow, left the Princes in. What did I take out? Let's just sort of finish this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards out. I brought in 2 Collector Oofs. Card is pretty fantastic in this matchup. I brought in a Disdainful Stroke. I probably brought in a Unified Will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 4. 2 Collector Oofs, Disdainful Stroke, Unified Will, and Ceremonious Rejection. So a nice little package to bring in against the colorless Eldrazi deck. And this is a nice opening hand. We don't have a blue card to pitch for Force, but it's a very solid Soulherder hand. Expedition Map, pretty rough on turn 1. Opponent kept 7 again. Land was a pretty sweet draw there. We were obviously pretty low on that. And it's the 3rd Misty, so play 1, and if they play a creature, we can path it right now. But it looks like they're just going for Ancient Stirrings. What are they revealing? An Urza's Mine. All right, getting closer to Tron means they'll have turn 4 Tron. All right, typical line, get the Temple Garden tapped, and probably follow it up with a basic island. Soulherder was a really nice second draw for this game. We do want to start hitting some lands, but, you know, with 3 in hand already, I can't really complain. Gonna run out this Prince and start scrying. All right, so don't really want the Hallowed Fountain, I don't think yet. We're still going to have another draw step. We've got Ephemerate for Charming Prince, or just Soulherder blinking Prince to scry some more. We'll see how things develop. I'd rather just have gas on the top of the deck. Card drawing is just making it more likely that we'll draw into more lands, so I can go ahead and just put that on top, put this on the bottom. There's that mine. Opponent thinks a little bit. We can hide this. Soulherder as a draw last turn turned on the Force of Negation. Important to note. Play our Misty. Go ahead, get into the red zone. Okay, Prince hits them for 2. They're down to 18. And, you know, our deck, we can kind of sit back sometimes. I've got a Path, I've got a Force, I've got Instant Speed, Coatl. Not really sure what the opponent's going to go for next turn, but we've got plenty of ways to interact with whatever they do. We're not going to have Death Touch yet with Coatl. But here we see a Reality Smasher on the beatdown side of this deck. And I am going to Path this guy. And since there's really... Wait... I think I chose... Oh, wait. So here's Coatl. I'm going to see what I draw, because this is actually pretty clever, I think. You want to have as much information as possible before discarding. So draw an extra card. That Muldrifter is going to be sweet with Ephemerate. So I think I'm probably just going to pitch the Witness right now. Got more of them in the deck. Could pitch the Soulherder, but Soulherder is a blue card to pitch the Force of Negation. And since I need white mana now, and I've already fetched, and I have a Misty. It doesn't have white in it, so I need to get a dual. Sort of needed to get the Hallowed Fountain, which doesn't give me double green, so can't even cast the Witness right now. And even though Witness getting back a Path to Exile is pretty sweet, no double green, and the rest of my hand being super solid just means I'm probably just going to pitch that Eternal Witness. All right, so their 5/5 is exiled. They follow up with an Oblivion Stone. Sort of rough, but remember we do have Charming Prince in hand. Sorry, not on the board, and we can blink that guy if we want to. But this turn just looks like, the opponent's tapped out. We're going to cast Muldrifter and Ephemerate and draw 4 cards. That's just ridiculous. And we've got a Force. We're going to draw into some more blue cards. So let's get it started. Put the Evoke on the stack first. Draw 2 cards. Pretty nice. And then Ephemerate. Draw 2 more cards. 2 lands. Not amazing, but it just kind of shows you what I was talking about. Why I bottomed the Hallowed Fountain, even though I kind of wanted to continue hitting land drops. Is between our draw for the turn and all the card draw with our creatures, you don't really need to leave lands on the top of the deck that often. So now, if the opponent just cracks their Oblivion Stone, we can rebuild pretty quickly with Soulherder and Coatl. Draw a card for the turn, blink it at the end step, draw another card. So should be drawing 3 cards next turn at minimum. The opponent starts out with a star, cracks it, plays Once Upon a Time, finds another Reality Smasher, plays another tower for 3 more mana. Okay, looks like they're wiping my board. That's pretty rough, but Muldrifter did draw me 4 cards. And I'm going to get a rebounded Ephemerate. I can go ahead and play a Coatl, make sure that I get my value. Also important to note that if Ephemerate doesn't have a target, and if it just gets, if it doesn't have a target and you don't cast it, it just stays in exile rather than going back to the graveyard. Actually, I think if it gets countered on the rebound, exile as it resolves. Beginning next to me, cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. If it gets countered in this spot, I think it does go back to the graveyard. It doesn't stay in exile. I know that it gets exiled or stays in exile if you have no creatures out, which is always a bummer. But fortunately, I can flash in the Coatl, drew another Coatl. I've got so many lands. That thing's definitely going to have Death Touch. And we are just going to slam Soulherder here. Okay, blink this guy. Drew another Soulherder. That's pretty good. We've got all our mana out. Eldrazi Temple. The opponent has basically infinite mana. 10 mana probably means Ulamog. Ulamog is going to exile my stuff. Soulherder triggers to no avail. And they just pass. Opponent down to 3 cards in hand. We can rebuild again with Soulherder and Icefang Coatl. Another land. Play that Hierarch. Play the Soulherder. Blink this. Hope to draw a blue card. We do. Just in case they cast something that we want to counter. Another Reality Smasher. Well, we've got Death Touch for that. And remember that Ulamog doesn't have Trample or any kind of evasion, so yes, it's going to exile 20 cards from our library, but we can just chump it for now. We do have a path sitting in the graveyard. We've got some more paths in the library. So, seeing all these creatures, it's, as I was saying while I was showing you guys my sideboarding decisions, it's probably incorrect to take out the Winds of Abandon. It might actually be correct to bring in a second Winds of Abandon. Not necessarily to overload it, but just to be able to sort of remove some of their individual threats. So let's go ahead and chump the Ulamog and Death Touch the Reality Smasher. We are going to take 4 Trample, but we'll still be at 10 life, which is pretty healthy. Soulherder still on the board. Opponent down to 3 cards. They play a land down to 2. And nothing else. Ephemerate, pretty sweet. That means we can sort of block and then blink. I'm going to go ahead and run out the Coatl here because I've got a lot of mana that I can use. And there's that Eternal Witness, so we get to run that out and get a Path to Exile. So opponent in response, going to Ghost Quarter, my Hallowed Fountain. Not really sure what they're trying to do here. Trying to reduce my access to blue mana. With them having exiled 20 of my cards, I actually don't have any more basics to go get. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The only possible one that I could have gotten would be this, the third forest. But yeah, I guess they exiled that with Ulamog. So anyhow, I floated blue. Didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but just go and get this Path to Exile. I've still got white mana up with this basic Plains. Still have the Ephemerate that I drew for the turn, so I can Ephemerate Eternal Witness to get back a blue card to pitch to Force if they cast something that I need to counter. Oh, but end step, just blink anyway, get back a blue card. There's that Muldrifter. We've got the combo with Ephemerate in hand. And things are looking pretty good. So on their upkeep, I'm going to stop them, exile their ridiculous Eldrazi. Opponent looking for a forest, I guess. Looking. Not sure why they're looking so much. Let's see if I can play through here. Seems like we're kind of stuck here. Oh, so they found a basic waste, which is fine, I guess. Opponent's got 3 cards in hand. Looks like they're just passing through. So yeah, I feel like we're in a pretty solid spot here. I can always blink Eternal Witness, get back a path. Disdainful Stroke kind of just locks it up. Even if they rip a, it was still kind of a risk if the opponent drew Walking Ballista. We don't have a great answer to that. I can blink the Eternal Witness to try to get back a Path to Exile, but with all this mana they have, it's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. They could play it for 7. Pretty much wipe my board before I can even get access to the path. So now if they try to go big with a Walking Ballista, we have a counter for it. So I could play the Muldrifter and Ephemerate here. It seems like a pretty good option. I'd still be able to leave up Disdainful Stroke doing it that way. Opponent looks like they're trying to do some stuff here. But I think they just scooped. Interesting timing. Not sure if that's exactly how things went down. I'm pretty sure I did pass to their turn. I think that they played, sometimes the ends of these replays get a little bit corrupted. Pretty sure I just attacked here. And then when they went to cast, they top decked like Karn, the Great Creator, and I just countered it. So I feel like they may have even played a World Breaker in this game. Actually, I'm fairly certain they did. A little disappointed that the replay is not showing it. But yeah, they played a World Breaker. They blew up my Temple Garden. And then, let's see. I think I ephemerated the Eternal Witness. to get back a Path to Exile, exiled it, and then eventually it just countered a Karn, the Great Creator. So we've got game against this deck. We just have to play very tightly, have to draw pretty well. You know, it is a big mana deck, and we tend to have difficulties against those decks. But with our mix of counterspells and creature removal and recursion with Eternal Witness and the sort of Soulherder comboing with all that value, we can beat them. At this point, the game is very much locked up, which is a nice feeling because against these decks that have ridiculous top decks, with another deck, you might feel like you're just inevitably going to lose because they're going to be drawing much stronger than you are. But they really can't draw anything at this point because I can Disdainful Stroke. Maybe they can resolve like a Matter Reshaper. But if I feel like it, I can just recur Path to Exile and get rid of that thing. But any big spells, like an Ugin, I can just force and then buy force back on my end step with Soulherder blinking Eternal Witness, or if I need it right away, I can Ephemerate the Eternal Witness. Any spot removal that they have, I can just save the creature with Ephemerate, or again, just with a counter spell. So it's one of the aspects of this deck that I enjoy the most, is that when it builds its mountain of value, it just also slowly becomes kind of a prison deck. I've got creature removal at hand, I've got multiple counterspells at hand, and potentially just drawing 6 cards off a Mulldrifter. You draw 2 when you cast it, you draw 2 when you ephemerate it, and then you draw 2 on the rebound. And then, of course, I can just keep end step blinking it to draw 2 extra cards each turn. And the value is just insane. So I hope you guys enjoyed this short video here against Eldrazi Tron. It's not necessarily indicative of how it typically goes. Again, that first game was a little bit weird. The opponents definitely scooped a little bit early. But the second game was really strong. Please leave your thoughts down below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet. And if you'd like to support the channel and all these videos that I make, please take a moment and check out the link to my Patreon page. Thanks again, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.